Hi, this is Dr. Deborah Zucker, and welcome back to our third video in the Personal, Collective, and Planetary Health module. And this video is on opening to receive support. And so I want to start with this topic coming from the context of where we left off in the last video, where we got to have an embodied felt experience of what it is to consciously be part of the whole. And so when we're living with that conscious awareness of being one expression of life, of being an integral player in the entire web of life, the barriers that we may habitually have had around leaning into others for help and support, they drop away. And they drop away because we recognize that we're simply supporting the fullness of our own thriving in whatever ways we're able to, that we can't afford not to do that, that we're needed, we matter. I'm going to pause there to let that sink in. We're needed and we matter. So we do what it takes. We seek out the expertise, the guidance, the witnessing, and the love that will usher us along our unique path, that will support us in really blossoming into our flourishing, into who we're here to be, into offering what we're here to be gifting the world. We reach out for support because we recognize that our life expression is vitally needed. And so moving from that recognition that may be somewhat new for you, or maybe that the shift is now coming from an intellectual understanding into the embodiment of that understanding and actually living it day to day, I want to just take a moment here to reflect on how you have been receiving support. So it's a time to check in with yourself now and just be brutally honest, not in a self-judgment, shaming kind of way, but just to recognize, who have you been turning to for help in nourishing your health and flourishing in life? What's your honest assessment of your current patterns in relation to leaning into others for support? And I want you to be honest here because the truth is that most of us are quite isolated in our health journey. We're navigating on our own, whether we're having celebrations or struggles. We don't share them typically. And there can be a lot of shame, a lot of avoidance, a lot of self-judgment, as well as a whole lot of confusion with how to actually sustain the changes we seek. Our entire orientation around health and medicine these days is rampant with constantly changing theories and a lot of hype, a lot of fads, and it is incredibly confusing and disempowering for us as individuals to know how to really care for ourselves. And the messages that are out there are actually disconnecting from what we've been emphasizing in this learning together, disconnecting from actually having a felt sense of your own capacity to listen to and heed the feedback and to develop the skills and knowledge that can move you towards your own flourishing. And much of conventional healthcare these days adds to that sense of loneliness and disempowerment because there's such an emphasis on compartmentalization of care. And so we end up having more superficial relationships with the practitioners who are seeking for support because there's very little time that we spend with them, and they may be looking through their particular narrow lens of what's going on and not taking into account the complexity of the whole person that we are. And so the other reflection now that I'd like you to tune into is how have you been offering support? So checking in with yourself on how have you been showing up in service to the flourishing of others and supporting others in their healing and their growth and their transformation in life. And I'd like you to be honest with yourself of if there are any double standards or differences in how you open to receive and how you share of yourself. So just tuning into that right now in this moment. Again, no need to judge, no need to shame. It's just a matter of getting clear and honest so that as you move forward, you can move forward with more of a sense of empowerment and direction around what are some of the changes that you'd like to make in your life. So now this is just an overview slide, introducing the 5 ways in which we thrive in relational support. And I'm going to go through each one of them individually. And as I do so, the invitation for you is to look through the lens of both the giver and the receiver. So again, expanding on that sense of noticing what differences arise for you between the two. Reflections. So this is the first element that I'm going to highlight in terms of how we thrive in relational support, that reflections are vital. We all have aspects of ourselves that we're unconscious to. We simply can't see everything about ourselves. And it's like we can have a whole operating system or belief system that's running the show in our lives that we have no idea that it's there. And it's only really through receiving the reflections and perspectives of others outside of ourselves who can witness and share what they're seeing that we can really begin to uncover and shine light on that which we haven't been able to see. And the result of that is that we free ourselves up in life to direct our lives with more conscious intention, that we're not navigating with these operating systems that might not actually be in alignment with our own thriving, our own flourishing, our own really being in alignment with who we're here to be in this life. So the second one is skill and capacity building. And this one, might seem kind of straightforward, but I want to emphasize it here because for our relationship with self-care, I think it can be easy to take for granted that we ought to know these things. But the truth is that most of us don't grow up having learned these skills and capacities. So as adults who are consciously stewarding ourselves, we have to recognize that, we actually need to put attention and focus to this and seek out the support that we need to learn these skills. So we can seek out, there are those who have expertise who can guide us. And if we recognize that we can indeed increase our self-awareness and our knowledge through learning from those who specialize in particular aspects of our self-care, for instance, like diet or strength training or somatic practices or breath retraining or emotional competence, mindfulness. There's a huge list. Those are just some to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. That if we have the humility as well as the recognition to seek out the training and the support of these folks who can help us to learn these skills, it translates into greater confidence and empowerment to really be the creative authors of our lives. So I just want to emphasize this, that there's so many resources out there in this way for us to expand our awareness and capacities. The third one is accountability, and this is probably what people most often think of, and it's huge. I really believe that there's no ingredient that's more powerful and essential as relational support to help us to find our way into an easeful discipline and sustained transformation in our lives. And this can look like a lot of different things, whether we're checking in about our process or we're setting goals and structured timelines. Our momentum forward is augmented through the witnessing and holding of another human being. And I'm sure that all of you listening have had some experience of this. But even when we've had an experience of this, and I know this very intimately in my own journey, it's another thing to actually recognize when we need it. When we may be stuck and when we may be served by having that kind of holding and witnessing. And there's so many creative ways that we can invite this into our lives. It doesn't necessarily need to be a practitioner that we're paying, although that can be incredibly helpful and offer, a whole other dimension of depth and skill building and support. But simply in inviting friendships or partnerships where there's that element of shared desire to support one another through the witnessing, through the holding, through the naming of our intentions, and having regular, it's really important with accountability to have very regular follow through and check-ins in order to keep that container tight and to keep us in our momentum. Loving holding. This, I need to mention this and highlight it, even though, it's really the foundation of all that I'm talking about here. Love creates a cauldron of transformation that moves us towards our own flourishing. Through being held in a loving embrace of unconditional acceptance, we can emerge out of the shame, the loneliness, and the quicksand of resistance and overwhelm. We feel nurtured, we feel seen, we feel held in our movement forward. And more than that, we get that our healing and our transformation matters. Again, it's like it's dimensions of the other things I've talked about in terms of the reflection and the holding. But it's really that deeper place of knowing that we matter, of knowing that we're beautiful, that we have worth, that what we have to give matters. And through the reflection and the holding of others, we can come to a stronger foundation of knowing that innately in ourselves and moving through life from that place. And the last one is remembering our innate union. And this really gets into what we dropped into in the last video, that on this human journey, we need regular reminders that we are indeed not simply a separate self, that we bodily remember that we are part of the whole. And it's through relating, through coming out of being so focused on our individuality that we're able to stay connected to the larger context and interconnectedness in which we live. And this helps us, to pop out of the constructs and beliefs that may be keeping us imprisoned or stuck in our health journey, in our movement forward in life. That we're each able to show up and support one another in remembering that we are all, each of us, vitally important to the health of the whole. That it's not a matter of trying to do our part to contribute to a world in need. That we are, in fact, the world in need. So again, dropping in and really feeling that. So just as I'm doing in this module with my teaching, I'm repeating myself a lot as a way to really engender and evoke that remembrance, that bodily, the embodiment of the remembrance of this, that we are part of the whole. That we pop out of the suffering that we're in through forgetting that we are able to encourage and nourish our movement and our expression, our blossoming in life. And we need each other, we need each other to remember this. Simply holding the gaze of another human being sometimes can do it. Showing up in service to another, doing our creative work in the world, and turning towards ourselves through the witnessing and reflection of others with that same compassion and loving holding. Remembering that we're part of life, that we're part of the whole. And so I'd like you to grab your journal now and take some time to drop into what's evoked for you in the following 4 questions. From the learning in this module, what has now shifted for you around your orientation to asking for and receiving support from others? Who might you invite onto your support team now and why? And again, I want to emphasize that your support team isn't just about professionals, although you may certainly look to what professionals you might bring on. But this is also about friends, loved ones, partner, family, communities of practice, learning communities. And how might you resolve any double standards or differences in how you open to receive and how you share yourself in support of others? And what are the potential impacts of these changes for you, others, and our world at large? All right, so that wraps up the third video, and I'll see you in the fourth, which is on unleashing our vitality.